Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, May 27th. It is a Tuesday. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. We had a great day of hoops last night. SWBA finally got a dramatic game in the Western Conference. We didn't really get too many dramatic games in the quad, but we do have a national championship game set between UCLA and Xavier. We will talk that. To do all that, we're bringing in Rico. Good morning, Rico. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. It's always great to be on the show and talk hoops with you here, Marsh.
So let's start in the association and then we'll get to the quad. The Thunder hold on with some of the greatest shot making that I have seen in the fourth quarter. That's not to say that the Wolves didn't have great shot making, but it seemed as if every single time that Minnesota made a bucket, it was an answer on the other end by the Thunder, who hold on for a 2-point 126 win. I This Thunder team, the depth and the shot making again, I was blown away by that, particularly in what was a very entertaining fourth quarter. Rico.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about it. I think that Sam Presti, look, this is why he's probably the best GM, in the association with the way that he's been able to put this team together. Shout out to him getting Alex Caruso over, who's been really huge for this team right now. This is why you go out and get this guy. Look, he had 10 points. He was +8 in that game, but just defensively, what he's done for the Thunder, I mean, it's been terrific. And then you got Shea Gildress here dropping another 40-point game. And I mean, this team is so tough to beat. You got to give Minnesota a ton of credit. But man, OKC is deep.
They're deep. I've said this multiple times. I thought the second quarter against Denver changed something because Jalen Williams has been better ever since then. SGA has been fantastic. Chet Holmgren was huge, particularly on the defensive end. But in that fourth quarter, SGA and Jalen Williams just hit so many huge buckets, and they did it when Minnesota did not get a good Anthony Edwards game, right? This was a huge night from Dante DiVincenzo, a huge night from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, if Minnesota wins, this is the Nickeil Alexander-Walker game and not his cousin, as those two, him and DiVincenzo, hit 10 threes combined. Just 16 from Anthony Edwards, and this is the margin of error that doesn't exist in the postseason. And a game that easily could have gone in the opposite direction, but it's ultimately a 21 turnover game from Minnesota and Oklahoma City in that fourth quarter. There was just no answer. And I just can't imagine how demoralizing it is, but you could hear how demoralizing it was for the fans in that fourth quarter, Rico, because every single time they'd get a DiVincenzo 3, Nickeil Alexander-Walker 3, they'd get some bucket inside. Maybe it was a follow from Rudy Gobert. Maybe it was Naz Reid getting rolling. He didn't have a great game, but he had a couple shots. And every single time, SGA would just cradle his defender into him, hit a pull-up jumper. Jalen Williams would get open for a midi turnaround jumper, maybe a deep three. I mean, it was answered every single time by this Thunder team. Chet Holmgren had some big shots as well. Without fail, they answered every single bucket. To me, that is what you see from a veteran team. It's not one that you see from one of, if not the youngest rosters in the SWBA.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one of the things about Minnesota is they do a great job as far as closing down games. And in fact, even when you look at this statistically with the way that the game broke down, Minnesota really won quarters 3 and 4. Okay. And so that just lets you know just how clutch, just OKC was. I mean, the fact that you had a hot team with Minnesota who has been doing this really throughout the playoffs, the way that they close and taking care of business like this, and really what they did is they made Minnesota pay for their mistakes because they won the turnover battle, did OKC. I mean, 23-14. You just can't do that if you're Minnesota to turn the basketball over 23 times like that when possessions come at a premium. This is how OKC can just lock you up like that. And so you hit the nail right on the head. The way that they were able to answer against a tough Minnesota team, Marsh, I'm not sure that there's too many other challenges that really need to be thrown at the Thunder that they need to see. I think that they've seen it all, and they're ready now, I think, to go into the finals.
They'll get a chance on Wednesday, game five at home, a chance to close out the Wolves and book the second trip to the SWBA finals in franchise history. Speaking of headed to the finals, two teams, UCLA and Xavier, are going to the finals in SimWorld U and Hoopsteria with wins on Monday night. Let's start with UCLA, who doesn't just win, but they dominate Alabama. A huge night from Jalen Snow, particularly in the second half, 21 points. And a very quiet night from the two big names, and really the three big names if you throw DJ Childs into it, from Henderson, who goes 4 of 12. Epps takes just 6 shots, and DJ Childs takes 9 and goes 1 of 9. But this was, I saw it, the blizzard in Chicago. Jalen Snow was so incredible. You know, talk about Jalen Williams and SGA making big shots down the stretch. It felt the same exact way with UCLA in that second half as Bama tried to like find life in that game, and Jalen Snow snuffed it out at every single turn.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you were at that game, I hope you brought a jacket because it absolutely was snowing with the way that Jalen Snow performed. And even though he only had 21 points, it's the way that he did it. We just talked about, Shea Gildress, and we also talked about Jalen Williams. He's literally almost like a mix of those two players when he has it going because there's not anything that he can't do on the court. And coming into this, Marsh, I thought that like the key here was, could Bama just keep up with UCLA? I think that if a team can keep up with them, you're just hoping that you can get a stop and then you're going to get off to a little bit of a run, and that might be the difference in the game. But if you cannot keep up with UCLA in this potent offense, forget it. And that's exactly what happened to Bama. I mean, they look like they were totally in the mud. This is the worst that I've seen DJ Childs play in this tournament because he's been everything for them, along with others, whether it's Henderson or Falls and Epps. I mean, you name it. I mean, these guys have been hooping, but man, UCLA, this is the best defensive game that I've seen in the tournament. So
Yeah.
I'm scared for who has them next.
Well, it was a phenomenal defensive game because you hold Alabama to 42% shooting. You force 12 turnovers. You don't win the battle inside, which I thought that was really important for Alabama to get rolling. But UCLA's defense didn't really make that much of an issue, right? I mean, 8 second chance opportunities with 8 offensive boards from Alabama, and it didn't matter. You know, they kept Levin Cutler off the boards for the most part. It was really Aaron Matthews doing a lot of the damage, and the it was the perfect blend for UCLA of defensively shutting down one of the deeper teams in college basketball and then offensively exploding, right? You got to the free throw line. They were plus 15 from the free throw line because they were aggressive, right? They were
Yep.
downhill. Their stars got rolling. JJ Ortega was phenomenal. He won the matchup with DJ Childs without any question at the guard spot. They did the perfect blend of what they do best. Get inside all but two of Jalen Snow's shots. To your point of like what's a comp? SGA is a downhill get to the paint kind of guy. That's what Jalen Snow was last night. 14 shots inside the arc. And that opened up the floor for Gerald Carroll, who was really dangerous, who he has been all season long. And now, and we could talk about Xavier now, who gets a win over SMU squad. They go up against an Xavier team that doesn't really have an offensive weapon. They don't really have an offensive identity. They got here by playing suffocating defense, which they did against SMU.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And I question now, can Xavier continue to hold another opponent under 60 points? That's the
Mm-hmm.
magical number, I think, for Xavier. And I mean, with UCLA, they do not have an issue scoring. And so, look, I love defense. This is going to be the tallest challenge for Xavier, but I got to give Coach Sean Miller a ton of credit because their perimeter defense, Marsh, has just been terrific. I mean, the guards are suffocating. And then, even when you do get downhill and you get to the rack, they're going to touch you up. I love how they give you the physicality. And it's not fouls, but it's just been terrific physical defense. It reminds me a bit of the Pistons back in the 90s. They want to let you know that nothing is going to come easy here. And so I love what Xavier was able to do defensively against SMU, who had just been so hot. They really had only been under 50% in the tournament one time. They held SMU to 39% from the field and 28% from downtown. I mean, just terrific defense, and only sent them to the line 13 times there. So look, I like Xavier's defense. I just don't know if they're going to be able to score with the pinball machine in UCLA to keep themselves close enough for that defense to really excel for them.
So they've won 8 straight games. Xavier has 3 that got them into Hoopsteria, and then obviously the last 5. Um, they have allowed 2 opponents, Creighton in the second to last game of the regular season, and Michigan State, to score 60 or more points. Obviously, they won both of those. That to me, 60 might not be the line. The line to me is 70. If they can hold somebody, because you look at ever since early February, this team has been, which has been really impressive, 12-4. They have been outstanding riding that defense. But you look at their losses: 82 points given up against Marquette, 70 against Georgetown, 78 against Villanova, and then 82 against Butler. If UCLA can get into their spot, which, credit to Xavier, they didn't allow SMU to do that, right? And I thought this was a game where, to just kind of stay to the positives of Xavier here, this was a game where they said, SMU, you have 5 freshmen that you rely on heavily. You have made it all the way to the quad. We are not going to allow your 5 freshmen to get comfortable in this basketball game. And they had McAllen Duval go 5 of 15. They had Cam Jones go 2 of 11. And they said, you guys are going to shoot the ball a lot, and we're not going to give you open looks. We're going to make it really hard for you from deep. Those 2 were combined 2 of 9. We're going to make it really hard for you guys to feel comfortable on the floor. We're not going to give you a chance to get up and down the floor, to run fast, to be an aggressive shooting team. We're going to make you play slow. And then they just worked their way into the sets they wanted. It's not a glorious game inside. So much of their offense came from a really hot night from 3, making 7 of them. Xavier is going to have to find a way against UCLA to again institute their pace of play. And I find that to be, it's going to be a challenge to do when Jalen Snow is maybe the 3rd overall pick, Rico, and LeGerald Carroll is probably a lottery pick. It's going to be really hard for Xavier, who has faced a tough schedule, but they did it against Memphis. They only gave up 42 points against Memphis. They've proven they can do this against good teams. They had held Illinois and D'Angelo Jordan to 47 points. This is the biggest test of them all. They've passed it multiple times. They didn't get here from facing a bad group, but this is
Yep.
one of the toughest tests that they're going to face up against this UCLA squad.
I'm right there with you. And I just think that UCLA I've just said, okay, this is the game where they're not going to score. This is the game somebody's going to figure them out. And nobody's been able to figure them out. And if I'm going to give them a comp, I'm going to say this. And so for the listeners out there that don't know, but Mike D'Antoni used to coach in the SWBA level here. And he was responsible for that Phoenix Suns team that just had Steve Nash and had Amari Stoudemire and Sean Marion, really changed the way that basketball was played. Like before Golden State was Golden State, being able to get up, 7 seconds or less. And so UCLA is that type of team, but they're the Mike D'Antoni team that has gone right, meaning this: they can score and they somehow figure out a way to defend enough. And I don't think that stops against Xavier, which is why I like UCLA in this game. Now, am I saying that Xavier is completely out? No, but I just think it's going to be such a tall order for them to try to figure some things out because you got to keep up with the pace. And I don't know if Xavier is going to be able to slow down UCLA with the way that they hit you with pin downs and then they go inside. Like it's just so many different actions that you have to defend. It literally can wear a team out mentally and physically.
I think if you're looking at like projecting this one out, I think the matchup with Alabama really played well into UCLA's hands, right? It was a team that also wanted to go a little up tempo. It was a team that wasn't afraid of playing with aggressive pace. And it just so happened that Alabama finally met their match in terms of a team on the opposite side that wanted to play the same style of them, but they just had better pieces to do it, right? Dwayne Epps, Quincy Henderson, both really good. Jalen Snow and Joe Carroll are better. And for an Alabama squad that wanted to play up tempo, they essentially got beat doing the thing that they want to do by a team that just has better pieces at the top, that has better prospects at the top, that do it a little bit better. They are going to see a polar opposite group here when they face off against Xavier. UCLA will. I mean, this is Xavier has no interest in playing fast. They have no interest in scoring 70 or more points. They have no interest in jacking up a bunch of threes, although they did that last night. They have an interest in playing their game, and it's going to be a will, and it comes down to the head coaches too, right? Sean Miller has done a phenomenal job turning this season around, which would have been a disappointment, but it's worth emphasizing, Rico, that this is an Xavier squad that sure you look at their record, you say 17 and 18, this is a good basketball team. This is a team that went to the grade 8 last season, the Super 16 the year before that. This is a team that's got, institutional knowledge of how to play effectively in Hoopsteria, and they're doing that right now, and they're continuing to showcase that capability. It's going to be a huge, huge credit to either one of these coaches because you're going to be forcing the other team on the other side of the ball to play the style of game that you want to play and not the one that they want to play.
I'm right there, and I think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good game. I just really I cannot bet against UCLA. Marsh. I've seen a
Mm-hmm.
lot of their games late here on the West Coast, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to translate. And then they've gotten to the tournament, and this is I would say Xavier is the best defensive team left. I think that UCLA is maybe the most confident team left. I mean, they play with a lot of swagger, a lot of juice out there. They just really believe, man. And I think that that kind of just it exuberates with this group. And so it's hard to bet against Mick Cronin and these guys. And I think that for all the finesse and stuff like that that they play with, I think that they have a little bit of an edge too. And I think that they're waiting for a game like this to prove to the entire country we belong here and we are the champions. And so we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a great game. But me initially, I'm going with UCLA.
UCLA in search of their first national title since 1995. Xavier looking for their first ever national title in men's college basketball, I believe since ever. Yeah, they have not won a national championship. So Xavier looking for their first ever. UCLA looking for their first in 30 seasons. A historic night as Xavier would become the highest or the lowest seeded team ever to play. First, they are the lowest seeded team to ever play in a national championship. Would be the lowest seeded team to ever win a national championship if they can pull yet another Cinderella upset against UCLA. This is what it was meant for. I talked about this season, this Hoopsteria kind of being encapsulated by some of these teams. A season in which we got all these 16 seeds pulling upsets, Rico. It only makes sense that we get a 14 seed and a team that could have been a number one seed if things went a little more right for them. We needed this and not a matchup of two Cinderellas. What wins out, we'll find out on Wednesday. Rico has UCLA winning. I'm going to hold on my pick. We've got another SimWorld today that I need to make sure we have content for on Wednesday morning, so I will hold on that one. Rico's got it. Rico, I appreciate you coming on and talking this morning after a really exciting day in basketball universe last night. And we'll be back tomorrow morning as well here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.